Okay, welcome to the SSAS training sessions. And in last session, we created data source. And this is the data source we created. And we set the impersonation mode to service account. And we tested the connectivity and it was working fine. So this is the basic step or the first step that you will do when you create when you start working on an analysis service project. So you have to make sure that the test connection is succeeded, because if the test connection is not succeeded here, then nothing else you can do here, because the data source view is purely dependent on data source and cubes and dimensions are purely dependent on data source view. So you have to make sure that each and every step that you go from start of the analysis project is successfully completed. Now let's start with before going to the data source view. I showed you if you want to edit in the code, you can right click and select the view code, which will display the XML format of the same data source view which we have created, and you can edit it here. But you have to be very careful. I don't like to work on XML file because it's a very risky and dangerous. If you miss anything or if you made any small mistake, then it'll go for a toss. I showed you in the last session also. Now let's see the options that I have here. Sort by name. If you have multiple data sources, if you can use this to sort by name. And if you right click here, you can open just to open it, or you can view the code, you can view the designer. That's again the same. Open and the designer are same. And scope to this, and that's highlighted. Only this particular stuff is showing. Okay, and you can see the options like exclude from project. If you're not going to use this, then you can exclude it from the project. And cut copy is just like you can cut and copy. If I go back, this is the button which I can use to go back once I scope to this one. And if I right click again, it will go to the next, previous and next. What is the previous state and next state? Okay, and let's see the cut. And cut is not a big deal here because I'm not gonna cut and paste it again. What difference it's gonna make? What I'll do is I'll copy and I'll paste it. So when I copied it, I can see the option paste. So it will ask for the new name because the name is already exists. So if I click on OK, it will take the new name and it will create the data source. I can create a number by copying the same. But think real time. Why you want to create the same data source again and again? It's of no use, right? So if you see, this is the copy and paste path, and once you pasted it, okay, then you can edit it and you can change to another database if you want. But this option provided by Microsoft, as per my guess, not even 0.001% of people will use this copy and paste. So this copy and paste is part of multiple other objects. Like when you create different objects in the analysis services, you will find this copy and paste. So they added the option for data source also, but it is of no use. Okay. Now let me delete one, the delete option just to delete it, and rename properties. Properties will show the same properties window, the name or the file name. What is the file name? And reminding this is object ID and object name. So if you see here, I created this and I copied this, right? What I'm going to do here is I'm going to rename it underscore copy. Okay, and I can create one more database, the database in one more way. That is, if I go to the data source, if I go to the data source, I can create a data source based on another object. If I select this, and if I go here, it will ask me to pick what is the data source I want to create. Like what is the data source that I have to use. So for example, if I selected Adventure Works DW 2014, and if I click on OK, now it will take the same properties and it will create the data source. If I click on finish, you can see Adventure Works DW 2014 space 1.ds is created. Now let's see what is the difference between this and this. If you open it, you can edit the data source here, data source connection string here, because it's a copy and paste. It created the same copy like the existing data source. And if you go here, you cannot edit it, but instead it is maintaining a reference to the one which you have used. So this is the one you have used and it is using the reference of it. Okay, and you can also change the reference here. You can either refer to this one or refer to this one, but this is the one which we used for creating, for cloning the data source. Now what is the difference, which way is better? So for example, if you see this is the copy and this is the cloned one, right? If I go and change the data source here, let's say I'm pointing to 2014 DW, let's say I changed it to AdventureWorks 2014. Now the copy of this one will not be changed because it's the copy and paste. Okay, but this is the referenced one, so it will come here and it will go to this one, and hence it will go to this existing data source and it will go and check which database it is pointing to. It will be pointing to the new database, so it will make the connection to the new database. So that is the difference between the copy and creating the data source based on existing object. So it's more like if you see the file system, let's say I'm going to C drive. Let me create. I don't have any file. This is ridiculous, man. Okay, let me create a new text file here. Oops. 1 second. Let me create a folder. I'm taking text document and I'll write some text in this one. Okay, now if I right click, I can see options like copy and paste. Let me copy it and let me paste it here. So I copied and pasted the document. Now if I make the changes to the document, it will, the outside document or the document which I copied and pasted on my desktop will remain the same. It won't reflect the changes in the, because it's an entirely new copy. It copied and pasted it. But what if I try to create a reference or send, there will be an option called reference, right? Create shortcut. I don't see it here. Create shortcut here. If you see, now these two are same. It has created just a reference to the existing document. Let me make some changes here and let me save it, and you can see the changes reflecting here. So because this is just a reference, in the same way the data source, you are using the reference or you are using the copy and paste option. So both are not useful options. You don't need any of this option, but I'm explaining you guys because it is part of our analysis service tool. And if you edit it, you will find the default properties like isolation mode. There are different types of isolation mode: snapshot or read commit. So it will read and commit, or it will take the snapshot of data. This is more related to the SQL Server, how you want to read the data. Okay. Okay, here you can see the isolation mode, how you want to read and read the data. While reading the data, which option, which isolation mode you want to select, whether it is read committed or snapshot. So it will get all the data in one snapshot and then it will process, or else it will read, commit, and then it will read and it will commit. And this is, I mean, if you want to know more about the isolation mode, you need to understand the isolation concepts in SQL Server. It's a pretty big concept. There you have many options like read, commit, snapshot, read uncommitted, and a lot of. So, but here in analysis services, you can choose between these two, and the default one provided by Microsoft is read committed, which is good to go. And the query timeout, if you give 0, it will wait for a lot of time. And generally, people give like 5 minutes. Some guys will give 2 minutes of a query timeout, like 120 seconds. This is the query time, the time it will wait when it sent query to the SQL Server or the underlying database, whatever it is, like SQL Server or Oracle or Teradata or MS Access. Okay, so it will wait for that long, and then it will cancel. It will return timeout. And the maximum number of connections is 10. This is what the maximum number of connections is allowed to the connection, like to connect to the SQL Server or underlying database. And if you want to provide any description here, This is one option which you will find in every object, and which is not used by any developer for any object. But this is helpful when you, let's say you specified something like this. This is a copy and pasted one, right? And let's talk about this referenced one. The next developer who is going to work on this project might have the same doubt, like why the person created referenced data source. You can provide some description here, like this is the data source connecting to the database XYZ or AdventureWorks DW through the data source AdventureWorks DW 2014. So you can give some explanation which will be helpful to the guys who will be working on this project after you. So these are the different options in the data source. So this is one-time task normally in projects. So hardly you will create one data source when you start working on the development project in the dev box. And once you move to the QA box or QA server, then you will change the data source pointing to the QA server to QA and database server. And then once you move to the production, then you may need to change the data source. It's always one time. And whenever you move to a different server, and if you want to point to a different database server, then you have to make a change. Apart from that, you will not be working much on the data source part. And the next one is data source view. So let me delete these guys. I don't need it. I just need one data source, and I remember I changed the data source to point to some database, which is not the data warehouse database. It is just the application database. Now let me change it to data warehouse database and click on OK. Now let's start with the data source view. What is the use of data source view? The most frequently asked question. So the data source view will sit on top of the data source. So let's say your data source has 100 tables, and in data source view, you can filter the tables that are required for your analysis service pack. For your analysis, let's say among those 100 tables, you just need 10 tables for your analysis service cube design. Then why you need to connect and get all the 100 tables into your cube? So this data source view acts as a filter. Like it will, you can select only the tables that are required for analysis service purpose, and it has many other options too. And personally, I prefer to spend a lot of time on the data source view because this is very important for your cube design. If you go to the cube design or dimension design, the data source view should be perfect first. If you have any flaws in the data source views, then it will be very difficult to correct it later point of time. Let's say you created one data source view with some issues, and then you created cubes and dimensions and everything is fine. After a few days, the tester or the QA guy raised an issue saying that in the data source view, it is pointing to the wrong data or wrong table. So the cost of making the change so that it will point to the right table is very high. So if you change it in the data source view, then all the references in the dimensions and the cubes will go for a toss. And again, you have to process the whole database. So that takes a lot of time. And I don't prefer to make any changes in my data source view once the cube design is complete, because you need to do a lot of rework. So my suggestion is try to spend a lot of time on data source view and make sure every table and every column is added to the data source view, which are required for your analysis service project, or in other words to say, like, which are required to meet the requirements given by the users. Now let's see how to create the data source view. And there will be a short description when you right click and create the new data source view. And here, if you see, you can create a data source view from tables and views in the relational database. Use this wizard to create a new data source view. A data source provides a simple connection. This data source provides just the connection to the relational database. Use a data source view for more advanced features, such as caching metadata, adding relationships, creating calculations, and setting logical keys. So we will be seeing all these options now. So let me go to next. Here you have to select through which database you are going to connect to the database, through which the data source you are going to connect to the database. Here we have only one data source created, that is AdventureWorks DW 2014. So I selected the same. Or if I want to create a different data source pointing to a different database table, I can create it from here also. If I click here, it will take me to the old page, like creating the data source wizard. You remember this, right? This is the first wizard we worked while on analysis service project. Or I'm fine with this data source. If I click on next, it will list all the tables that are present, tables and views that are present in the database. So these are the tables. This is the icon which represents table, and this is the icon which says it is a view, database view. And if there will be system tables always created, system objects which will be created when you create a database. If you click on this, it will show all the system views and system tables. And if you see the size of the scroll bar, it become pretty small. That means there are a lot of system tables. You can see a lot of system tables and system views, but I don't need it for now. I'm gonna uncheck it. I'm gonna use the tables that are present in the analysis in the SQL Server data warehouse database, and I'm gonna build my data source view based on this. Let's see the different options that are present in this wizard. The first one is I need I'll pick a couple of tables here, and if I select one table and if I click on add relationships, what it will do is it will go to the database and it will find out all the tables that are having relationship with this. I hope you know the concept called foreign keys, primary keys. So the primary key column will be joined with the foreign key column in the transaction table. So it will try to get all the related tables that are having at least one relationship with this table that I have selected. Now this fact internet sales has relationship with this dim sales territory, dim currency, dim product, fact internet sales, reason, and dim date, dim customer, and dim promotion. Now if I select this dim product and if I click on add related tables, I know this dim product has one more table which is related with, or no, three more tables: fact reseller sales, fact product inventory, and dim product subcategory. And I know this table is having relationship with one more other table in the database, so that will be added here too. And if you don't want any one table, you can click on this so that it will be taken out, or if you don't want any of this table, you can use this to take out any of these tables. And this option here in the bottom is to filter. If there are many tables like 250, 300 tables, you can't scroll down to find out the table that you are interested in, so you can use something like this to filter out the tables, and you can pick what table you are interested in, add and add related tables. So these are the different options that you can find in this particular page of the data source view wizard. So once the tables that you're interested in, let me filter it again. So once you selected the tables that are required for your analysis purpose, you can just click on next, and it will ask for the data source view name. This name looks fine to me, so let me go on, click on finish. The data source view will be created. It's a beautiful presentation of tables and the relationships between the tables. Okay, now this is our data source view. There will be a lot of options in the data source view. Let's see one by one. If you remember, I selected this table and I select the button add related tables. So all the tables that are added to the data source view are having relationship with this table. That is why you can see this table is related to this, and this table is related to this, and this one related to this one related to the promotion, and dim product, and dim sales territory, and fact internet sales reason. So this is what people call as star schema. So there's nothing much about star schema. Star schema is nothing but when the fact table is directly related to all the dimension tables, then we call it as star schema. So to understand it better, first let's see what is dimension table and what is fact table. So basically there are three types of tables in analysis services, and the first one is dimension table, and the second one is fact table, and the third one is factless fact table, or in other words it's a bridge table. So let's say this is your dimension table, and this is your fact table, and this is your factless fact table. Let's go in detail of each and every table here, because understanding the dimension table and fact table and factless fact table is very important. And if you see here, they have prefixed dim, which says it is a dimension table. They have prefixed fact, which says it is a fact table, but this will not be the case every time. You need to figure out, you need to identify which is your dimension table and which is your fact table. Now, what is dimension table? The table which contains the textual information that is required for your analysis purpose. So that is called dimension table, the shortest definition. And what is fact table? The fact table is the one which holds or which maintains the metric information that is required for your analysis services. So I explained this a lot of times in my earlier videos too. If you see, when you try to analysis means like trying to find out where a particular business is standing and what are the reasons for downfall or what is the reasons for super success of the business. So it's more like analysis, right? So if you want to do analysis of any business or any person's performance, you need to ask two questions. The answer for one question is textual information, and the second question answer is metric information. You will compare a business with another business, right? Based on profits, which is a metric, right? Or based on sales, which is a metric. Okay, so let me tell you a couple of examples. A question is like this: which business is top one in India? So you have to answer which business is the answer for one question that you have to give is which business, and the second question is top one. The answer for the second question is top one. So top one is a metric here, and what business you are going to come up, you are going to answer is the answer for the first question, that is the textual information. So the textual information is the dimension part, and the metric information is your fact part. It will be in the fact table. So this is the easiest way. Or next easiest way to identify the dimension table or the fact table is, so the dimension table is in most of the cases the master tables in the SQL Server or in the relational databases acts as dimension table. Okay, so I mean to say the master table, let's say dim promotion, this is the master table and you have the primary key. Master table, in other words, we call it as the table which has the primary key, right? And the foreign key table, which will have the metrics, which will have the relationship with all the dimension table, this acts as the fact table. So the transaction table acts as the fact table, whereas the master table acts as the dimension table. And you can see this is a master table and this is the master table. How can you say that? Because this table has a primary key and this table has a textual information and this table has a relationship to the foreign key relationship to the transaction table. So all the master tables, I don't say all the master tables, because in few cases the master tables also acts as a fact table, but maximum cases the master tables which holds the textual information will be your dimension table, whereas the transaction table which holds the metric information will be your fact table. Let's take any business, let's take an IT field. So employee table, which will be having master information like employee ID, employee name, employee designation, who is his manager, what is his SSN, or whatever, different fields. So that is the master table, and that will be the dimension table because it has a lot of textual information like employee name and employee number, employee designation, and so on. What is the transaction table for these employees? The leave details is one transaction table where you will be using this employee ID in the transaction table, and next to that employee ID you will assign like 3 days leave or 5 days leave from and to date and so on. And the another transaction table is payroll for each employee. You'll be tracking it, right? So that is one transaction table, and where you will have metrics. So those two tables will act as your fact tables, whereas the employee table will act as your dimension table if you want to do some analysis if you want to create analysis project on top of those three tables. And let's take any other business. Let's take banking. The customer is a master table, and it will have textual information, and it has primary key. So it acts as a dimension table. And withdrawal will be captured in the transaction table. Banking customer withdrawals and deposits, right? So that is your transaction table where you will have the metric information like how much amount, whether it's direct, withdrawal or deposited. So this is all the transaction information. So that will be your transaction table, which means your fact table in analysis service concepts. And let's take any other business. Let's take transportation. Um, Vehicle details will be your master table, whereas trips and all, how much trip, what is the weight, like 10 tons, 50 tons, and how much is the cost, all these things will be captured in your transaction table, which will be your fact table in analysis service projects. Let me give one more example. Before that, let me erase the drawings. So let me zoom it. I can zoom it. I can make it to 50%. Oops, it is too small. I think it's 75, right? Okay, let it be 75. Now, this is dim product table. Forget about dim and forget about fact. You have the names like okay, let me give some friendly names so that you can easily understand. So the friendly name, I'll give it as product, and the friendly name, I'll give it as internet sales, and for this I give it as promotion. Okay, now I need to identify what is fact table and what is dimension table in these three, from these three. Okay, and the first and foremost criteria is it should be master table. Master table means which will have the primary key, and here if you see, this has primary key. This is the primary key, and this promotion is a master table. And the second thing is it should have a textual information that is required for your analysis, and you can see the textual information, like let's say your requirement says like I want to see promotion wise sales, so I need the English promotion name. This is what I'm looking for in my to meet my requirement. So this is a textual information, and this is my dimension table. And let's take this table. This has a primary key, and this has textual information which is required for my analysis, like English product name, and it also has something called color. I want to see the sales based on color. Sometimes you want to see the sales based on colors, because if you released 10 different color caps, for example, and let's say the sales for black color caps is far higher than the remaining things, then what you will do, you will try to produce more caps on with black color, right? And if there is no sales for white color caps, then you have to reduce the production. So this will be useful for my analysis purpose. So this has textual information, and this has primary key, and this is my master table. So this acts as a dimension table. And if you see this has all the key columns which will be used to refer to the remaining the master tables. And this has a lot of metrics: extended amount, what is the unit price, what is the order quantity, and what is the sales amount, what is the tax amount. So this has all the metrics. And above all, this is my transaction table in the database concepts, relational database. Transaction is nothing but which will hold all the foreign keys. If you say this is the foreign key, product key, this product key is the foreign key of this product key in this table, and this order date key, due date key, and ship date key are the foreign keys of this date key, right? So this acts as my transaction table. Now this is my transaction table, and hence this is my fact table in analysis service concepts. Now let's go back to the discussion about the two questions for any analysis. So let's take a player performance. Let's take there is a match going on between so there was a match, right, between India and Sri Lanka, cricket match. So people who want to analyze, or people who want to understand what happened, so what they'll do is they'll come and ask you two questions, or they'll come and ask one question and they'll give answer to the second question. Okay, so let's see some examples. The example for the person will give one question and will give one answer. That is, who won the match. Won the match is the answer for the second question, whereas who is the question for the first question. You understand? And who won the match means you will answer whether it's India or Sri Lanka. In this case, it's Sri Lanka. So your answer is Sri Lanka, and the second question answer is given by the guy won the match. So he is interested in who won the match. In the same way, uh, who scored highest runs. So highest runs is the metric that he is interested in, and who scored you have to answer. So the metric information is highest runs, and who scored is the attribute or is the textual information that he is interested in. Let's say I'm not getting any name. Let's say XYZ scored highest runs. The next question is let's say XYZ is scored highest runs. So the next question will be XYZ scored. Understood, guys? I try to make it clear. I hope you understood, but if you have any questions, let me know. I can explain with one more example. No questions? I'm short of breath. So no questions. I waited for a couple of seconds, so more than 15-20 seconds. So I'll take it as no questions. I'll explain once again by somebody, Jaysima, with the name Jaysima. Okay, I'm not going to capture it, but I'm going to give you an example. What is the best one to? Try to ask me any question which has only one answer. You should not give any answer. It should be only question. The answer should be it should be like one answer, one question. Can you ask one question? It should not be part of it should not be mix of two questions. Can you ask any one question to me to find out any business? Let's say starting from your MSET rank, or who stands first, or anything. Ask me only one question. Only one question that you want to know. Let me put it in this way. If you want to ask me the fees of the SSAS training session, how will you ask the question to me? I'm unmuting you. You just ask me the question. You want to know the fees of SSAS training session. How you will put the question to me? Jaysima or Samyukta, I think it's Samyukta. I've unmuted you. Are you talking? I'm not hearing. Okay. I'm unmuting. How much is the fees for the SSAS training? And if you see the question that you asked me, you are expecting the fees from me, right? What is the fees? That is a metric. That is a numeric value. The answer will be numeric value. And another question answer is given by you, that is SSAS training. Okay. And if you want to ask both the questions, let's say I'll give an example for both the questions, like what course, how much fees, or give me course wise fees details. So if you ask me that question, I have to give the course like SSAS, the first answer for the first question. SSAS, it's 6,000, and SSRS, it's 5,000, SSIS, it's 6,000, right? So there will be always two parts in the question if you want to know. If you can able to ask question with without two parts, let me know. I'll be very happy to know that. Try that. If you can find out any such question, that will be great. Guys, I have unmuted everyone. Can you have any question? which has only one answer, not two answers, either you providing the second answer or expecting from me. I hope you understood what I'm trying to say here. Ask me any question which will have only one answer, either textual or metric. And the point here is you should not provide answer to the second question. The question will be something like this: who or where or why, something like this, which is a nonsense, right? So if you want to understand any business, there will be two parts to this. One is textual, most of the cases, 99% of the cases. One is textual and another one is metric, and the textual will be your dimension data and the metric information will be part of your fact table. So that is how you need to figure out the tables. Okay, let me give you one example here. This is my fact table. By seeing the metric information, I can say this is my fact table, right? And this is my dimension table because it has all the textual information. Now, this can also be fact table. Can you tell me one scenario where product can be a fact table? Okay, let me tell you. I want to see the count of products based on color. So the color will be the textual information answer here. I will give the answer to the textual information, textual question, that is what are the colors, and number of products, that is count of products. So count of products I can get only from the product table, right? So I have to use this product table as my fact table to get the count of products. That means the query will be something like this: select count comma select color comma count from so and so product table. So in that case, my textual question answer and the metric question answer will be from the same table, and hence the product table will act as my dimension table as well as my fact table. So now you understood how to find out whether it's a dimension table and the fact table. That is the first step of understanding the schemas. So to understand the schemas, you need to understand what is dimension table and what is fact table. Now once you understood that, now let's see, there are two main types of schemas. I'm saying. The first one is star schema and another one is snowflake schema. So the star schema is nothing but when the fact table is directly related to each and every dimension table, then we call it as star schema. So for example, this is my fact table, let's assume, and I have three dimension tables here, here, and here, these three. And if every dimension table is having direct relationship, direct means it's a foreign key in SQL Server concepts or relational database concepts. If every table is having direct relationship, every dimension table is having direct relationship with your fact table, that schema is called as star schema. Now tell me, the schema that you are seeing on my screen, is it star schema or snowflake schema? This is star schema, right? Because the fact table is having relationship with all the dimension tables. Now let's say now let's discuss what is the snowflake schema. Snowflake schema is the one in which the fact table will not have direct relationship with every dimension table. Let's say I have one dimension table here and there is no relationship between these two, and it has relationship through this one. So this kind of schema is called as snowflake schema. So when the fact table is directly related to every dimension table that is in your data source view, then we call it as star schema. Whereas if the fact table is not directly related, if you see this is related to this, but through some intermediate dimension table, this is not directly related. That is very important here. You can have relationship indirectly, but fact table and the dimension tables, all the dimension tables are not directly related to the or not directly related, then we call it as snowflake schema. Now how can I make one snowflake schema here? So to do that, let me erase the drawings first. If I don't have relationship between these two, for example, let's suppose and let's say these two have relationship. Now if you see, the promotion and internet sales are related through some intermediate table, that's team product. So this is how this schema is called as snowflake schema. And people will ask you what is best in performance. The best is always star schema in performance wise, and snowflake is little poor compared to the star schema, but most of the databases that I have worked so far are snowflake schemas, because I couldn't make it as star schema. So to make it as star schema, let me show you one example. Let me add or remove tables, and let me remove everything, and let me add everything. And if I click on OK, you can see there are lots of tables. Let me arrange the tables. There are lots of tables, and I don't know from where to where it is flowing, and how can I bring star schema from this. Sometimes the schema will be so complicated, like you can't fit the snowflake schema, you can't create a star schema out of a snowflake schema. If it is a small, like with 5 to 10 tables, then you can try to convert the snowflake schema into a star schema, but it is not possible to make a snowflake to star every time, because if you see this is a very complex design, and there are a lot of tables which are not at all related at all. So how can you bring relationship directly to this fact table, to the fact table? And also there is a challenge here. There'll be more than one fact tables in the data warehouse. Let's say you are working for an IT company. There, the fact tables will be like payroll, financial related payroll, and leave details will be one fact table, and admin related stuff. So there will be different fact tables, and so in those cases you can't bring star schema, and hence you have to live with snowflake schema, even though the performance of the star schema is better.